Hello and welcome to Ascential Experts with myself, Simon Charles. I'm a video creator and a video training specialist here at Ascential. And today we're joined by Sanjib Kalita. Hi, Sanjib, how are you doing?
Hi, Simon. So wonderful to be here.
Good. So we'll kick off straight away. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Money 2020 for those that don't know and what your role is there?
Sure, absolutely. So let me start off by talking about who does Money 2020 serve. So Money 2020, as the name implies, is about money and who takes money, who stores money, who invests money. And so whether that's paying with a credit card at a retailer, whether that is keeping money at a bank or giving it to an investment manager, or even sort of the big underpinnings, like, so for example, like the regulators and the governments that create money. And and wrapped around all that is sort of the technologies and so you can have like startup companies. You have, as I mentioned, the big banks. You have the investors, and actually now you've got, like, for example, a lot of the big tech companies like the Googles, the Facebooks, the Alibabas, and so forth that are all part of this global money ecosystem. And what Money 2020 does is help leaders in this global money ecosystem make better, smarter, and faster decisions. And we do this by helping connect them to people and companies, in our live events, and as well as the ideas there. We also engage with this community on a weekly basis with our podcast. We also help provide thought leadership, which helps drives ideas, and with things like Moneyfest or even white papers.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about your personal role there. What do you do?
Sure. So I'm actually the only person still here for Money 2020 from the early days. When I joined, it was literally 4 of us in a room calling our friends, saying, hey, we're building this thing called Money 2020. You should be part of this. And now I'm actually editor-in-chief at the Money 2020, and sort of looking at things from a broader perspective in terms of content, in terms of ideas, and how do we inject that best thought across our properties.
Nice. So as you mentioned, you recently released the white paper, which is the building blocks of Fintech 2.0. Why was now the right time to write this piece?
That's a great question. And I think that one of the things with disruptive times, is that the money ecosystem gets a chance to pause and to reassess where they are, and redefine and reinvent themselves for the future. And if I go back to the last disruption, the financial crisis of 2008, back then, in 2010, a California VC firm asked me to put together my thoughts about disruption in payments. And so I put something together, and $1,000 investment in the companies I identified 10 years ago would be worth $400,000 today. So that's nearly doubling your money every year. And once again, having gone through the last year with the pandemic, I saw a similar pattern. I saw disruptions across the board, and I sort of felt that it was actually the right time to reassess. And I think the industry was reassessing, and the idea was to help frame thoughts and present a vision of where I think things might be going towards in the future.
Amazing. So what are some of the major themes or building blocks, as you say, that are covered in this report?
Yeah, absolutely. So I in terms of building blocks, and I having done marketing, I try to frame it in a nice snapshots that are easily memorable. So I put it in building blocks A, B, C, D, E. So A is for assets and central bank digital currencies. B is for banking tech stacks. C is for commerce experiences. D is for data, and E is for the ecosystem. And so assets and central bank digital currencies, we're seeing a lot of central banks interested in how they can take traditional currencies, which is, has gone from paper and coins, to the digital realm, and how they could do that in a decentralized manner, or even a more digitally native manner. And so we're seeing a lot of stuff there. B, in terms of banking tech stacks, I think historically a lot of banking technology was on mainframe and traditional systems like that. Then obviously going on to where we're at right now, there's a lot of cloud computing, and that has a lot of implications in terms of connectivity. So I think the banking tech stacks are going to change quite a bit. Commerce experiences what that is about is how the payment is being included in that entire commerce experience. So for example, and this is the example from maybe a couple of years ago, but like Uber, when you order an Uber, that payment is included in that whole experience. And from a commerce experience perspective, what I see looking forward is that we're going to see more consumer-driven commerce experiences, which have implications in terms of how money and payments work. In terms of data, there's so many quotes about like how we've created more data in the last 2 years than the prior 400 years or what have you, and so that explosion has huge implications, and for consumers, for businesses, for governments and regulators, and I think that we're just at the cusp of that. And then from an ecosystem perspective, because everything is becoming more intrinsically wrapped up, I think there's going to be a lot more companies that get into the money ecosystem. Once again, going to, like, for example, companies like Facebook, Google, Alipay, Gojek. These are all companies that you wouldn't necessarily think of as money companies, but they've started to become part of the money ecosystem.
So in the report, you claim that fintech will become intrinsically more connected to the economy. What does this really mean, and how will it manifest for both consumers and brands?
A lot of times when you talk about something like this at the beginning, it might not make sense, and it might only make sense 5 years from now. For example, Peloton is a company that has been doing has had amazing sales over this last couple of years, and they've been using a company called Affirm for their buy now, pay later. Basically, consumers can buy a Peloton, which is a very expensive device, get it in their home, and pay it over the course of time with very simple terms. There's no talk about interest rates. There's no talk about late fees. It's a very simple value proposition. And so when you have financial services that become part of more everyday financial, commerce experiences, it needs to be simple, easily understandable, and I think another thing is it needs to be more transparent, and I think that something like that, on the high end, an expensive product, the financial services is now part of that Peloton value proposition. Looking, a bit in an emerging market, for example, you have companies that are for example, in Indonesia with like Gojek, or Southeast Asia with Grab. You have companies that are basically Ubers in their region, rideshare companies, and now they've become the entry point into financial services, because in markets like that, you might only have maybe 10-20% of consumers that are banked, whereas in Europe and America it might be 80%. And so you have a lot of unbanked customers, and this relationship with a ride-sharing app helps them create a digital footprint, helps create data, which enables them to access additional services and financial services. And so I think both on sort of, I guess, the higher end as well as sort of the mainstream, I think that financial services will become more part of the commerce experience.
Great. So the white paper looks ahead to the next 5 years. Are there some immediate steps that businesses need to take in order to stand themselves in good stead for the changes that you have predicted?
Absolutely. I think, one of the biggest things is that businesses need to think boldly. This is not a time for minor tweaks and changing, small features here and there. This is about, and this is actually not to jump too far ahead, but there's another report in the works about the changing consumer, and consumers are changing. Their expectations are changing, in a big way, and I think that what they trusted in the past isn't necessarily what they'll trust in the future. And I sort of alluded to it earlier too, that there's a great deal more transparency now as well too. And so I think that organizations need to be very, very true, and they need to be thinking about things in a very holistic manner. So, and I don't want to get too far off in the clouds, but thinking boldly. Then I'd also say that there definitely there needs to be action, and this is not so. For example, let's just talk about like sustainability or ESG, governance and so forth, and diversity. Whereas a few years ago, I think companies were more okay with let's study this. And now we're at a point where, let's not study this, let's do something. And so I think that the call to action is there. And organizations that do not heed the call to action are going to be left behind. I'd also say that it's also, from an organizational perspective, even our team members and even our customers, there's actually, with digitization, there's the danger of almost like thinking about it in terms of very mechanically. And I think to the extent that we can continue to keep the humanity in the services we deliver, I think that that's also going to be critical. And that's also very important to engage with customers, engage with the ecosystem, and helping create value propositions that people actually trust.
Nice. So I'm going to mention it, cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies seem to have come out of thin air over the last few years. And it's obviously a regular discussion around the dinner table now. Are there any innovations in fintech world that you think will catapult to fame in the next few years?
Yeah, that's a great call out there. And cryptocurrencies. So I actually highlighted cryptocurrencies back 10 years ago in that initial paper, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And even now, 10 years later, there's implications that we can't fathom even for the next 10 years. So I actually think that cryptocurrencies and the broader trend of decentralized finance are going to be a rising tide that's going to lift a lot of boats. And I'd also say another similar type of idea is that 20 years ago, at the dawn of the internet, it was basically a consumer would look and look at that data and just read that data and react to that. And so it's very centralized. Then, looking at smartphones, you had a case where you would look on your smartphone and you would put in data like your location. You could put in data like, a barcode that you're looking at, and that would come back and feedback to your, execute centrally and come back to your phone. But I think that, what we're going to see more of is execution at the edges as well too. So whereas before you were just reading at the edges, then you were inputting data at the edges, and the next wave is going to be executing at the edges. And I think that has implications for like how these big ecosystems work and sort of the software stacks. And I know that that's probably a lot of thought and a lot of complicated stuff there, but like just sort of think about, you know, what do you view as a luxury good? You know, you might, you know, view a nice car, or, you know, having a nice seat in an airplane, or having a, you know, nice clothing as a luxury experience. I would put forth that in the future, we're going to have luxury algorithms, and consumers will be willing to pay a luxury premium to get an experience that executes at the edges. So that's maybe a bit out there, but like that's you know, hopefully, yeah, I'm sure some of the folks listening to this will be able to brainstorm some ideas with that.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure we could be here for the rest of the day, obviously having this conversation, but we're going to have to wrap it up there. Finally, Sanjib, where can people find the white paper if they want to know more?
Sure, absolutely. So the white paper is on the Money20 website in the content section, and you know, just you can download it from there. And I as I've alluded to, I think that this is just the beginning. There's a lot more stuff that's happening. So any thoughts, any feedback, please do send it to us. We'd love that.
Awesome. Sanjib, thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. Really appreciate it.